I never thought I'd see the day my mother stopped calling me every morning. That was her thing, she called me before I could even brush my teeth. Sometimes it annoyed me, but now I'd give anything to hear her voice again. She passed suddenly. A stroke, the doctors said. 1 minute she was in the garden talking to my dad, the next, she was gone. Just like that. No warning, no goodbye. I took the first flight home. The sight of my father, this tall, once commanding man sitting in a chair, staring at nothing, broke me in ways I didn't think possible. He didn't speak much at the funeral. Didn't cry either. He just kept saying, "She left me. She really left me." After the burial, I stayed a few more days, just to be sure he was okay. But every morning, I'd find him sitting in the dark, still in his pajamas, holding her favorite mug like she might come back and fill it. I couldn't leave him like that. So, I did what I thought was right. I invited him to come live with me and my wife, Lillian. At first, he resisted. "I don't want to be a burden," he said. But I insisted. He was my father, after all. And we had the space, no kids yet, just the two of us in a cozy house with an extra guest room. Lillian supported the idea, too. She held my hand while I talked to him, nodded when I explained how he could stay as long as he needed. "He shouldn't be alone," she said. "You're doing the right thing." I remember feeling proud, grateful, even. I had a wife who understood. A woman who cared not just about me, but about my family. Dad moved in a week later. The first few days were quiet. He mostly kept to himself, barely spoke at dinner. Sometimes I'd catch him staring at the TV without turning it on. I figured grief needed space, and time. I wasn't going to push him. Lillian tried, though. She made him tea the way Mom used to. Baked his favorite banana bread. Asked him questions, encouraged him to come for walks. She said he reminded her of her own father, who passed when she was 16. I was touched by the connection they were forming. But I should have paid closer attention. Sometimes, grief doesn't just open wounds, it invites shadows. And some shadows don't come alone. At first, it felt like healing. Dad started to come out of his shell. He was eating again, watching the news, even helping Lillian in the kitchen. I remember walking in one afternoon and hearing them laughing. Really laughing. It warmed me. After everything, maybe this was our second chance, our family, reshaped but still together. But then I started noticing things. Subtle things. Too subtle to feel like red flags, more like flickers. Just enough to make me blink, then carry on. Lillian started dressing differently around the house. Not in a dramatic way, but I noticed more fitted clothes. Crop tops she hadn't worn in years. Silk robes with nothing underneath. I chalked it up to her trying to feel good again. Maybe she was just being more confident, more at ease. She didn't seem interested in explaining it, and I didn't want to make her feel policed in her own home. Then there was my dad. He began sitting in the living room more, chatting with her for hours. About books, her work, movies she liked. I thought it was sweet at first, two people bonding, keeping each other company while I worked late. But it slowly crept in, the shift in her attention. Fewer hugs when I got home. Shorter kisses. Less eye contact. She was always tired or not in the mood. I asked once if something was wrong, and she sighed like I was being dramatic. "You've been gone a lot lately," she said. "I've had to hold things down here." That was true. My job had gotten intense, with back-to-back trips and deals that needed face-to-face meetings. I hated being away, but I was doing it for us, for the life we'd talked about building. One night, after a long flight, I came home and went to plug in her phone. It lit up. A message preview popped up. "Missed you today." That blue dress was dangerous. My stomach dropped. My hand froze mid-air. I stared at the screen. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. I didn't open it. I couldn't. My heart was racing, but my mind jumped straight into defense mode. Maybe it was one of her girlfriends being cheeky. Maybe someone sent it to the wrong number. Maybe. I put the phone down. I didn't ask. I didn't want to start a fight over nothing. That's what I told myself. But the truth? I didn't want to know. I kept going on with life, heading out for another business trip the next morning. She kissed me goodbye. My father waved from the porch. And as I left, something in my gut twisted, but I ignored it. Because when you trust people, you don't go looking for monsters in your own home. But maybe you should. The week started like any other early meetings, rushed flights, hotel food I could barely taste. I was in Chicago for a 3-day summit, and everything felt like a blur. Except I couldn't stop thinking about that message on Lillian's phone. The words haunted me at night, whispered to me when I closed my eyes. But still, I buried it. Work was the distraction I needed. Or so I thought. On the second night, the client I came to meet canceled our final session and offered to reschedule. That gave me the perfect window to head home early. I checked the flights, found a red-eye, and booked it without a second thought. I didn't text Lillian. I figured I'd surprise her. It had been a while since I did something sweet like that. Maybe we needed a surprise. Maybe I needed to come home and see everything was fine. My flight landed just after 5 a.m. It was still dark when I pulled into our driveway. The house looked peaceful, quiet just the way I left it. I slipped in through the back door. I didn't want to wake anyone. The idea of sneaking in, wrapping my arms around Lillian while she slept, felt like something out of the early days of our marriage. But as I walked past the kitchen, I noticed something strange. 2 mugs. Fresh coffee. Still steaming. I frowned. Who's up this early? I crept toward the hallway, my footsteps soft on the wooden floor. As I got closer to the living room, I heard voices. Low. Close. Laughter. My pulse quickened. Then a whisper, soft, teasing, familiar. Lillian. And another voice I hadn't heard laugh like that in months. My father. I stopped breathing. My heart slammed against my chest. I couldn't move. Couldn't think. The hallway seemed to stretch forever. I took a slow, silent step forward. Then another. I peeked around the corner. And what I saw. I'll never unsee it. They didn't see me. Not at first. They were sitting on the couch, too close. Lillian had her legs draped over my father's lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. She was laughing, her head tilted back, wearing the robe I bought her last Christmas. The one she hadn't worn for me in months. And my father had his hand on her thigh. Not casually. Not mistakenly. Possessively. I stood frozen in the hallway, my body numb. My ears buzzed, and yet every sound cut through like glass. I missed you last night, she murmured. I couldn't risk it, he said, voice low. He could call any time. But he didn't. He never does. She leaned forward and kissed his cheek. Then his lips. I blinked and wished I hadn't. Do you think he suspects? She asked. Not a chance. He's too trusting. Just like his mother. I clutched the wall to keep from collapsing. My stomach turned. I wanted to burst in, scream, break something. But my legs moved on their own backwards. Quietly. Cowardly. I slipped out the same way I came in. Back through the kitchen, through the garage. I sat in my car, trembling. staring at the steering wheel like it might offer me a way out of the nightmare I just walked into. The betrayal didn't hit me all at once, it sank in slowly, like venom. Lillian. My wife. The woman I built a life with. And my father. The man I brought into my home. The man I wanted to protect. How long? How far did it go? Why? 1,000 questions burned behind my eyes. But no answers came. Just silence. And an ache so deep it made me physically sick. I didn't go back inside. I didn't call anyone. I just drove. Somewhere. Anywhere. Because if I stayed, I didn't know what I'd do. I didn't go home that day. Or the day after. I checked into a hotel. I barely ate. Barely slept. I stared at the ceiling, trying to piece together how my life had crumbled in one morning. Eventually, the numbness faded and the rage began to boil. But I couldn't just storm in with anger and accusations. I needed proof. I needed clarity for myself. So I went back. Quietly. I told Lillian over the phone I'd extended the trip by a few days. She sounded relieved. That hurt more than it should have. While she was out grocery shopping the next day, I let myself into the house using my old garage code. I went straight for her phone, praying she'd gotten sloppy. She had. The messages were there. Dozens of them. Some deleted but not all. I screenshotted everything. Pet names. Plans. Inside jokes. Pictures. My father had a nickname for her. I searched his room next. His drawer had a second phone, probably the one they used when she got cautious. I powered it on and found even worse. They weren't hiding. They just didn't care anymore. That evening, I came home. For real this time. When I walked through the front door, Lillian's face drained of color. She stood frozen in the kitchen, a dish towel in her hand. My father was on the couch, reading. He looked up and something shifted behind his eyes. Not guilt. Annoyance. I placed both phones on the dining table. Anything you two want to say? I asked. The silence lasted too long. Lillian finally spoke. I was going to tell you. Eventually. My father stood. Son, this isn't how you think it is. Shut up. I didn't yell. I didn't need to. The silence in the room was louder than any scream. You were my father, I said through clenched teeth. And you were supposed to be my wife. What kind of people do this? Lillian collapsed into a chair, hands covering her face. It started after your mom died, she sobbed. He was broken. It just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far. My father scoffed. I was lonely. You wouldn't understand. You had your job, your life. I had nothing. I stared at him, searching his face for any sign of the man I once looked up to. All I saw was a stranger in my father's skin. You moved in to heal. Instead, you replaced her. The words tasted like acid. Lillian looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. I didn't know how to stop. I thought you'd leave me eventually. He was there. I stepped back, shaking my head. My chest felt like it was cracking open. You're both dead to me, I whispered. And I meant it. I didn't pack much. Just a few shirts, some jeans, my laptop. I left my wedding ring on the nightstand, next to the framed photo of our wedding day, my father standing proudly beside us, Lillian beaming in white. The photo made me sick. I moved into a small, furnished apartment across town. Quiet. Forgettable. The kind of place you go when you don't want to be found. The days bled into each other. Sleep came in pieces. Appetite vanished. I'd stare at the ceiling at night, wondering how love could rot so quietly, how betrayal could grow like mold in a house you built with care. I thought about my mother. How heartbroken she'd be if she saw what became of us. My wife, my father. The two people I trusted most had carved a hole in me that no apology could ever fill. I didn't speak to either of them. Not at first. Lillian sent messages I never opened. My father tried calling. I blocked him. They didn't deserve access to me anymore. I started therapy after a week of isolation. I sat across from a kind-eyed woman who didn't flinch when I told her the story. She simply nodded and said, "You've been through something unimaginable. But you're here." I was. Barely. But I was. Somewhere between the tears and the silence, I began writing. Not for revenge. Not for pity. But for healing. To make sense of the chaos. To bleed it out, one word at a time. This what you're reading now isn't just a story. It's what's left of me, trying to become whole again. It's been 8 months. Lillian still sends messages. Long ones, short ones. Some with photos from better times. She even showed up at my apartment once, soaked from the rain, eyes swollen, begging to talk. "I still love you," she whispered. I didn't let her in. Love isn't just about feelings. It's about trust. And once that's broken, sometimes it never comes back. She said it was a mistake. She said it started when we were both too numb to think straight. She said it wasn't about sex, it was about feeling seen. But what about me? What about my grief, my loneliness? My pain? She never asked. As for my father, he left. Packed his things and moved to another state without saying goodbye. A neighbor told me. I haven't heard from him since. He didn't even try. I guess that made it easier. But not simple. Some nights I still wonder, was there something I missed? A blind spot in me? Could I have stopped it if I'd paid more attention? And then I remind myself this wasn't my fault. I was a good son. A good husband. They were just people, flawed, selfish people who let pain justify betrayal. I'm still in therapy. I still write. I've started jogging again, breathing deeper, laughing occasionally. Healing isn't linear. Some days I wake up and feel okay. Other days I wake up angry. Sometimes I replay the whole thing in my head, trying to figure out if I'd ever forgive them. Would you? If the people you trusted most shattered your heart from the inside, would you let them back in? I don't know if I ever will. But I do know this. Some days, I miss my mom more. Because she's the only one who'd never have broken me.